Ripple being pushed out of America ASAP. Now, we may have a reason why in 2020, Ripple is going against the SEC, or SEC initiated a case against Ripple to push them out of America. We have something called the underbanked and the underserved in the financial institution. And it seems like there's some sort of race going on in between the central banks and non-bank financial institutions. So in today's video, I'm going to work to make the complex simple for you guys, taking very complex strategies that we've never learned in our banking system, in our education system, and I'm going to break them down to a complex level so you can understand what's happening with your financial institution. Remember, as you look this way, there's always another narrative going on this way. So as we dive through this, I'll do the best to make the complex simple. So comment down below. Do you think the Ripple SEC case was by design to bring in a new monetary system? Or do you think Ripple actually has the opportunity to flip the script and become the new ecosystem? So Ripple announced this on their website. So global collaboration for more equitable, sustainable, and inclusive economy. So Ripple is proud to partner with the initiative fintechs, universities, NGOs, foundations, and social entrepreneurs to make progress towards more open and meaningful connected world. Look at these partners. Just massive partners. World Economic Forum, and I'm not for or against or supporting any of this. I'm just providing facts, figures, numbers, logic. There's something big going on behind the scenes. Look at these partners here, okay? So what they're basically doing, and the key factor that I want to focus on, is financial inclusion. Now remember, Kamala Harris was in Africa on a tour as our country's falling apart, working to get the population into the banking system, into innovation. 1 out of every 6 people in Africa will be using the internet within the next 10 years. And they're calling it financial inclusion. What I'm calling it is the underserved in the banking system. Okay. But I want to take a look at something really quickly. So, US bank deposits fall for the 10th straight week as worries continue. So, US bank deposits went negative. Okay, a negative measurement. Usually they're growing about 5 to 10% every single year. They went negative 5% this year. So we have a monetary system that is collapsing, the banking system. There is no liquidity in the banking system. We are the liquidity. Our loans, our hard-earned paychecks are the liquidity for the bank. Now, the biggest thing that we're looking at now is the underserved. So they're working to get everybody into this digital type currency, this digital type system, because if we get all the underbanked underneath the system, then we can make money move at the speed of light, which is velocity of Monday. So this is on the FDIC website, and then we're going to jump into the news around Janet Yellen. And you're going to see Janet Yellen in there. You're going to see Gary Gensler, and I think he's the head of the FDIC. Now, they're changing the rules as they go along because the non-financial institutions, what would you call it? Non-bank financial institutions are starting to come up with a dominant force that could pull the liquidity from the regular banking system. Now, this is just my opinion based on facts, figures, numbers, logic. All my investments are based on where they're taking us in the financial system, infrastructure, payment rails, understanding the new connection between Web 2.0 and Web 3.0. Okay. So in 2021, the FDIC National Survey of Unbanked and Underbanked Households. Okay. I want to dive into this. So this is the national unbanked rate. So think about this for just a moment. If you have a liquidity crisis and you have all these people outside the banking system, Rosie Rios said she was told to reduce coin and cash usage in 2012. When she tried to reduce coin and cash usage as GDP growth went up due to the Obama rescue plan because they're printing more money than in history. So when GDP grows up, when money is cheap and there was low interest rates, you could move money really fastly, and money was moving very fast with GDP growth, right? Okay, when interest rates are low and money is printed and you can borrow and increase your salary just by borrowing, new innovative technologies come out, venture capitalists, all kinds of new GDP growth. But she said when you have GDP growth, it's hard to reduce coin and cash usage. She said you need a shock to the system. Well, in 2020, we had a massive shock to the system that shut our whole financial system, our whole traveling system, our whole business system down, correct? which pulled cash out of the system, which allowed them to turn the printing machine on full blast. When they raised interest rates, that helps destroy the middle class, moving them down to the working poor. And what they need now is the underbanked in the system. So, an estimate 4.5% of US households, approximately 5.9 million, were unbanked in 2021, meaning that no one in the household had a checking or savings account at a bank or credit union. So there's 5.9 million people without their money in the system. The underbanked rate of 2021, 4.5%, was the lowest since the survey began in 2009. Between 2019 and 2021, the unbanked fell 0.9 percent points, corresponding to an increase of approximately 1.2 million underbanked households. What happened between 2019 and 2021? Do you guys remember? What would make people get into the banking system if they couldn't normally use cash or wasn't as easy to get access to cash? Between 2011, when the unbanked rate was at its highest level since the survey began, in 2021, the unbanked fell 3.7 percentage points, corresponding to an increase of approximately 5 million banked households. So, this is the FDIC website. They want to get everybody underneath the new banking system. Well, at the same time as they tell you cryptocurrency is a fraud, there's a lot of stuff happening outside of America. Okay. America is outside of America. Everybody's working to de dollarize. The BRICS, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, they have a new development. Bank offers loans in local currencies instead of US dollars. So this is nothing new under the sun lately, is they are de-dollarizing from the American dollar. Now, I want to share with you guys, the dollar isn't just going to come collapsing down. The dollar runs the whole monetary system. The dollar is definitely cooling down as these countries work to de-dollarize. The G7 versus, G7 or G20, are basically group of countries versus the BRICS countries. If they continue to grow at the growth rate that they're at, they eventually are going to have more GDP growth combined than America. Now, America is massive. So look at the GDP of America versus the BRICS countries, right? America has a massive GDP. It controls the monetary system. I believe that behind the scenes, they're all working together, just my opinion. So this is where we get into the nitty gritty, okay? As everybody's focused on the news, it doesn't matter. The government watchdogs propose tougher scrutiny on non-bank financial companies. And before we continue on, if you're interested in figuring out how we've helped over 6,000 warriors worldwide get their shit together, there is no get rich quick. Join my revolutionary 120-day challenge, subconscious mind programming, goal setting, vision creation, budgeting, the 5 pillars of wealth, and helping you understand how the system actually works. At the end of this video, I'm going to show you how to get in the game. Okay, so government watchdogs propose tougher scrutiny on non-bank financial companies. Okay. Now I'm going to show you the boring, not exciting stuff. This is right here on the U.S. Department of Treasury. These are the remarks by Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen and at the Financial Oversight Council. Okay. It says often the council will determine that risk should be addressed by existing regulators using what is sometimes called activities-based approach. These may, there may be an instance where systemic risk emanate from the widely conducted activities in a particular sector of the market. FSOC has made activities-based recommendations in the traditional areas like money market and open-ended funds, as well as the new areas of crypto assets. Many of these risks are recommendations and described every year in the council's annual report. So basically, as they go along, they're changing the rules. Okay, the FDIC did a bail-in with Silicon Valley Bank. The feds ended up stepping in. They're like, we're not going to do it. Nope, we're stepping in. So they turned the printing machine on. So they did a bail in and a bailout. A bail in is when they take the debt, they turn it into equity, and they sell the bank on the open marketplace. And they said that they're going to inject liquidity as well. So they're injecting liquidity. They're bailing in the banks. Okay. There's going to be a monopolization of the large banks taking in the small banks. They're concerned about a run on the banks based on on non-bank financial institutions. So here's the actual video, okay? And we're going to watch this. It's a longer video, but I want you to see the players in the game. So as we watch this video, I'll narrate a little bit. So the video is going to go probably for about 20 minutes of my video. This one's going to be about 10 minutes, but you have to listen to how they're changing the rules as we go along so they don't have a modern day bank run and people go to non-bank financial institutions, which could be cryptocurrency companies, basically pulling the liquidity out of the financial system. There's a lot of non-bank, non-traditional, freedom type systems. But don't we live in the freest country in the world? So they keep saying their job is to protect us, but are they really here to protect us? Let's find out.
And through the separate proposed analytic framework, we're providing the public with
Okay, I'm going to stop that real quick. That's how I do my research at 2 times speed. There we go.
more information about how non-bank designation fits into the Council's broader approach to financial stability, risk monitoring, and mitigation. In all, I believe that our votes today are a major step towards strengthening our safeguards for the U.S. financial system.
So everything is about your safety, remember.
We look forward to public comments on these proposals. Let me now turn to Sandra Lee, Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Council, who will provide an overview of these proposals.
So these are proposals that they're all going to vote on, and then they all are like, I concur, whatever it is. Okay, so these are the proposals. You're going to hear Gary Gensler speak, and I think it's the head of the FDIC.
Thank you, Secretary Yellen. I appreciate the opportunity to present to the Council on these two proposals, which staff of FSOC member agencies work closely together to develop. The proposed analytic framework that the Council is considering today describes the approach the Council would take in identifying, assessing, and responding to risk to financial stability. This framework would apply regardless of whether a risk relates to a widely conducted activity or to specific entities. The proposed analytic framework does not impose obligations on any entity, but would help market participants and other members of the public better understand how the Council approaches potential risks. The framework is composed of 3 parts. First, it describes the Council's monitoring function. To enable the Council to identify potential risks to U.S. financial stability, the Council would monitor a broad range of markets, asset classes, and types of entities. These are described in the proposal. Second, the proposal...
So they want a new basic monitoring system on bank financial institutions and non-bank financial institutions.
Describes how the Council would assess potential risks. The Council will work with regulators to evaluate potential risks to determine whether they merit further review or action. The evaluation of a risk would be fact-specific, but the proposed analytic framework highlights vulnerabilities that most commonly contribute to such risks, such as leverage and liquidity risk, and includes quantitative metrics that the Council may use to measure those vulnerabilities.
So they're talking about leverage and liquidity, which our banking system is. So this is so crazy because if you look at the congressional hearing with the head of the FDIC, Michael Barr. Is it Michael Barr, head of the FDIC? Yeah. Basically, they were going at him and saying, dude, what's going on, man? He's not the head of the FDIC. It's the Federal Reserve Board, I think it is. But basically, they're like, what's going on? So they had all these risks. So they're adding more rules to monitor risk when they didn't monitor the risk. It's like, it's basically just a control mechanism to try to get control of the system before it spins out of control.
The proposal also explains 4 transmission channels that the Council would use in evaluating the potential for the negative effects of a risk to spread to other parts of the financial system. Third, the proposed analytic framework describes how the Council would address identified risks. The Council has a range of authorities it may use. Under the proposal, in many cases, the Council would work with regulators to seek the implementation of actions to address a risk. Alternatively, the Council may issue recommendations or may use one of its designation authorities. Under the proposed analytic framework, the Council would not prioritize among its authorities for addressing risks. Instead, the Council's actions would depend on the nature of the vulnerability. For example, vulnerabilities from activities that are widely conducted in a market over which a regulator has adequate authority may be addressed through an activity-based response. In contrast, where a particular financial company's distress could pose a threat to financial stability, an entity-based action may be appropriate. The second document the Council is considering today, the proposed interpretive guidance on non-bank financial company designations, focuses solely on the procedural elements of the Council's non-bank designation authority.
So basically, they're working to give them more power over non-banked financial institutions.
Under this authority, the council may designate
Think about that, non-banked. They don't have access to the money or the funds. They want everybody in the banking system.
a company for supervision by the Federal Reserve and prudential standards if the council determines that material financial distress at the company or the company's activities could pose a threat to U.S. financial stability.
Our own financial system is a threat to financial stability.
Proposed non-bank designations guidance seeks to establish a durable process for the council's designations under Section 113 of the Dodd-Frank Act. This proposal would restore the council's ability to address risks to financial stability, provide transparency to the public and to firms that are reviewed for potential designation, and ensure a rigorous and clear designation process.
So they're saying that they want to provide clarity to the public around non-bank financial institutions. Why don't you spend time providing clarity to the public around your current financial institutions?
The council, under the proposal, would follow a two-stage process. During the first stage, a company would be subject to preliminary analysis based primarily on information available to the council through public and regulatory sources and would be notified during the process. If the company is selected for additional review, the council and staff will engage with the company extensively during stage 2 as the council assesses potential risk to financial stability. After stage 2, the council may make a proposed designation, after which the company may request an oral hearing. After any hearing, the council may vote to make a final designation. For a designated company, the council would encourage the company or its regulators to take steps to mitigate the identified risks. The council would reevaluate the designation at least annually, including further engagement and two-way communication with the firm and its regulators, and would rescind the designation if the council determines that the company no longer meets the statutory standards for a designation. The proposed non-bank designations guidance addresses only the council's procedures related to designations. The risk factors the council would consider are described in the separate proposed analytic framework document. As a result, the proposed non-bank designations guidance does not include two analytic factors that were added to the existing guidance in 2019. Statements that the council would consider the likelihood of a company's distress and that the council will conduct a cost-benefit analysis for each designation. This change is intended to help enable the council to use its statutory authorities as appropriate while maintaining rigorous procedural protections for companies that are reviewed for potential designation. These two proposals would result in a more transparent and effective risk monitoring process for the council and would bolster the council's ability to identify, assess, and address potential risks to U.S. financial stability.
This is why Jamie Dimon said the banks should be scared shitless of fintech.
I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Before we vote, thank you, Sandra. I know some council members would like to speak. Let me first turn to Chair Powell.
Thank you. You got the head of the Fed, the head of the SEC, and I think the head of the FDIC all present there. They're all working together to switch this whole monetary system.
Thank you, Secretary Yellen, and thanks to the FSOC staff for the effort and expertise behind the revised analytical framework and non-bank designation process guidance. I'm delighted to support the revised process guidance and analytical risk framework, and I'll vote to approve these documents for release for public comment. It has been over a decade since the Dodd-Frank Act gave the FSOC the power to designate non-bank firms. In that time, the FSOC has gained a great deal of insight into Section 113 designations. We've seen that the financial system continues its constant evolution, underscoring that no single solution can address every financial stability risk. And I believe it is fitting for the Council to regularly assess its toolkit and consider how best to use our full range of tools to respond to systemic risks, whether the risk arises from an activity, an event, or a firm. I'm pleased that the Council chose to publish the analytical risk framework for the first time. The framework provides an overview of how the Council identifies and assesses risks and delineates the range of authorities available to the Council under the Dodd-Frank Act. It also emphasizes that the actions the Council may take will depend on the nature of the risk that it intends to address. The non-bank designation process guidance describes the Council's method of determining whether to designate a non-bank firm. The process allows for several stages of analysis rooted in the analytical risk framework before a designation is approved. Overall, I believe that the changes proposed by the Council will create a balanced approach to addressing potential risks to the U.S. financial stability and ensure that all the tools available to the FSOC will remain on an equal footing. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Gensler.
Thank you, Secretary Yellen. I want to thank the Council, the staff, and for you developing today's guidance on non-bank determinations, which I'm pleased to support. History is replete with times when tremors in one corner of the financial system or at one financial institution spill out into the broader economy, and such risk can originate not only from the banking sector, as we've seen in the last 6 weeks for sure, but also the risk can originate outside of the banking sector. And early in my public service.
So basically what he's saying is, because of non-bank financial institutions, company like Ripple, XLM, all these different companies, they're basically losing their footing in the monetary system. I don't know if they're all working behind the scenes together, but there's obviously a change in the financial system. They're on a delicate tightrope. They don't want all these non-bank financial institutions and decentralization.
Career 25 years ago, in fact, when I was serving in the U.S. Department of Treasury, I witnessed one of these events rather up close. I was asked by then Secretary Rubin to fly up to Connecticut on a fateful weekend to visit the highly levered hedge fund, Long-Term Capital Management, which was about to fail. Subsequently, I was asked to staff the President's Working Group review of the matter, and we found that event, quote, highlighted the risk of excessive leverage, the possibility that problems at one financial institution could potentially pose risks to the financial system as a whole, end quote. Highly negotiated sentence, by the way, between the Treasury and the Federal Reserve at the time. The 2008 financial crisis, much greater in magnitude, was yet again an example of systemic risk emanating out from both the banking sector and the non-bank sectors alike, lest we forget millions of people lost their job and small businesses shuttered across this great nation. In response, Congress set up this interagency council tasked with important authorities and mandates to better guard against systemic risk, recognizing that risk from both banks and non-bank financial companies can emanate throughout our economy. Hurt everyday Americans. Congress tasked this council to designate which non-bank financial entities were systemically important financial institutions, and then such designation would subject them to the regulation and supervision of the Federal Reserve. I was honored nearly 13 years ago to serve on the first council, including when we considered and later approved a 2012 initial rule implementing those procedures. Marty, I think you might have been there as well.
Okay, so that's what I want you guys to hear. I know that if you're still hanging here, you're a true ruler. So in 2012, Obama launched the rescue plan. In 2012, they started the bank bail-in plans. He just said in 2012, he was part of that committee. Guys, it's all interconnected. And then here we are in our financial system. And this is that FDIC meeting where they're talking about, should we notify the public?
Two, which basically hinges on the need for liquidity through the OLF, I think. How do we decide the resolution strategy? Does the firm have enough capital to make an SPOE work, or do we need to be thinking about an MPOE? Do we need to be more transparent about how we coordinate cross-border, how it would differ if we're a home or a host, for example? We get questions about planning for the bridge as well. Who's going to run this bridge? What assets and liabilities will go into it? And how will the FDIC oversee what's happening at the bridge and maintain that for public?
I remember Jay Clayton, who initiated the case against Ripple, is sitting in this meeting with the FDIC bail-in committee.
Confidence perspective.
He's sitting right there, if you can see him in the corner right there.
As well. We're thinking about creditors. How do you communicate with claimants, including about their claims determination? How will the losses be allocated on the Dodd-Frank hierarchy, which is different than under FDI Act and under bankruptcy? And then how will the claimants be compensated? How does securities for claims process work? We mentioned that in the 2013 thing that that Betsy mentioned earlier. We're also wondering if we need to be more transparent about some of the accountability mechanisms that we have as well for the general public audience. You know, we are required to remove culpable management. How would we go about doing that? Do we need to re-emphasize that in the Dodd-Frank hierarchy that compensation claims are subordinated to general creditors and that prior compensation could even be clawed back if needed? And then finally, there's the funding mechanism. You know, what part of that would be most helpful to boost confidence? I do think that the OLF and using it is the big gift. It's not a gift, but the big tool that we need in Title II to help provide confidence. But what do people need to know to really get that? You know, how important is it to explain the rules and the mechanics for the OLF? You know, how money will get from point A to point B. How would we use targeted guarantees to allay concerns about excess cash use? There's a lot of questions here. And so, you know, there are a lot of things we've been thinking about, and what we want to hear from you today is what you think the priorities would be in order.
The reason why I'm showing you guys this stuff is this is not the exciting stuff, but this is what's actually happening, guys. There's a switch in your monetary system. Your banking system is going to be completely different going from 2025 to 2030. You have the opportunity to invest in these innovative technologies, but you got to know what the hell you're doing, Warriors. There's a lot of people that are going to get rich quick next year, and they're going to get wrecked very, very fast. There is no get rich quick.
To go about setting expectations appropriately in public about how we would execute Title II, so that if and when we do have to have that announcement on Friday night, ideally Friday night, that people are in a position to receive it, understand it, and say, yeah, that works. And we can see how this will happen. Of course, there will be doubters, but there's a lot of things going on. So with that.
First of all, I'd like to praise the FDIC for its unrelenting pressures to have more disclosure under the actual public reports. I think they have been very helpful. Second, I guess I am a bit pessimistic about your ability to communicate with the people who really need to know in terms of a crisis. And this is partly from my experience of teaching this stuff.
I mean, listen, those laughs, dude. The nerves are like, man, they're like, fuck, man. I mean, this, if you look around the room in here, you look around the room in the other meeting, that's the same people, man. Well, obviously they're all connected to the financial system, but they're moving our monetary system, guys.
There was a lot of interest just after the crisis. It's dwindled over time. And so people are sort of less and less interested in getting into the nitty gritty and some of the really interesting developments. So I would think your strategy ought to be to disclose as much as possible to people who professionally need to know about it. And that would certainly include.
Basically what he says, after the 2008 crisis, now we all just forgot about it. And so he's like, just tell the people that need to know.
The ratings agencies and the people within the banks who are responsible for these judgments. And simply have publicly available a place where people can go if they need to know more. Because we're dealing with a society where people are getting their information in tweets. There's just no patience, I think, for going through the elaborate and careful planning that has gone on. It should be there. It should be accessible when people need to know. But I don't think you have much hope of reaching a public that doesn't have a professional need to know.
I completely agree with that. I almost think you'd scare the public if you put this out. Like, why are they telling me this? Should I be concerned about my bank? Like, my insurance company doesn't tell me what they're doing with my assets. They just assume they're going to pay my claim.
See, that's what I want you. This is the biggest problem. They assume. What does assuming do? It makes an ass out of you and me. We assume that the financial advisor is taking care of our finances. We assume that our insurance company is doing what they need to do. We assume that our banks are doing what they need to do. Well, guess what? They're now proving to us that they're not doing what they need to do. They're now proving to us since 2012 they've been prepared for bail-ins. They're now proving to us that systemically the financial system was broken in 2008. They're now proving to us that they printed more money than in history in the last 24 months. They're now proving to us that our debt-to-income ratio is negative in America. They're now proving to us that 33% of our debt is outside of America. They're now proving to us that we are sitting in a narrative of war narrative, climate change, and socio-geopolitical. So how much proof do you need? This is the greatest time in human history to build wealth, but it's going to get ugly, warriors. It's going to get ugly for a lot of people who are not paying attention. So I love you guys. I appreciate to know it's a longer video, but as we always say, warriors, rise. And if you need help getting your shit together after this video, click the description down below. 7 days for free in 2023.
Is designed to keep you trapped. 2017, I walked out of a high-paid vice president job because I was absolutely miserable. Working 16 to 19 hours a day because that's what the system taught me to do. And what I discovered through countless hours of meditation, research, reading books, understanding how the millionaires and billionaires operate, the system is designed to keep you trapped. Today, I own multiple companies. I travel all over the world. I'm financially free, and that's exactly why I created this community of like-minded warriors coming together called the 3T Warrior Academy. Now, I don't say this to brag. I'm sharing this with you to show you what's possible for you. Whether you're just starting out or you're looking to take your life to another level, we believe the Warrior Academy has something for everybody. Processes that take you step by step through disciplined, consistent activities, and that's exactly what you're going to get. Our 120-day challenge, all you have to do is open up the app and take it day by day. We're going to take you through the disciplined, consistent activities to take your life to the next level. Within 1 week, you're going to feel a difference. Within a month, people are going to notice a change in you. That's how powerful this 120-day challenge is. So if you're truly ready to break free from the old paradigm into a new paradigm of discipline, consistency, great relationship with your family, financial freedom, and learning the pillars of wealth that will change your life and generational wealth to come, I'm going to invite you to do our program for 7 days for free. The 120-day challenge has changed over 5,000 warriors' lives worldwide, and we hope to be yours next.
Warriors, let's get your together. Let's go.